Well, after 1 week, I come back again for the next part of the video of class 11th botany. Especially, I say a very important lesson again for the starters who wants to aspire to study NEET and take NEET as their future, you can say, occupation, to become a doctor. So for that, you have to give all the exams of chemistry, bio. So this is a basic lesson of 11, part 2 of the lesson of your NCERT book, Plant Kingdom. Okay, welcome back again to my channel, The Science Geek. Ratna Vishwas welcomes you all. In the first video, just 5 minutes recap, I had done about the introduction of Plant Kingdom, where we went for algae, the different types of algae, and how the different types of algae are differentiated based on their pigments, food reserve, and the structure that we came across. And with that, we did Bryophyta. In Bryophyta, the liverworts and the mosses and the differences between them, and overall the comparison of algae and Bryophyta in the first part of the video. Today, my main focus is on Pteridophyta, Gymnosperm, with their differences, how they are different, and slowly their plant kingdom is evolving till the angiosperm. There was no place here, so I did not write the word angiosperm. After this will come angiosperm. So today Pteridophyta, Gymnosperm, both in terms of their habitat, their plant body, their vascular tissues, the spores which are born on the sporophylls, the leaf-like appendages, which are of two types, mega and micro, depending upon female and male, and when they are organized into cones or strobili. Then comes their mode of reproduction, asexual as well as sexual, and the overall economic importance of pteridophytes and gymnosperm. Okay. Now keep your NCERT book in front of you. Open page number 37, and I tell you the figures of Selaginella, Eucystum, and Salvinia. These are the typical pteridophytes. You have to draw these three in your notebook in order to study them. As I said, my space is limited, so I am not drawing it. So this drawing you have to keep in mind with the labeling if it is there. Now, pteridophytes, the habitat of pteridophytes. First part. These pteridophytes are primitive seedless vascular plants, and they are also called as cryptograms. It was given by Haeckel in the year 1866. This term was given by Haeckel. Now, there are 13,000 species of pteridophytes on this earth, and they were the first land plants to be evolved, or which evolved during the primitive era. Until now they are there. Okay, so now what about the habitats, the general characteristics when we will study? What is the first part of its habitat? Where are they found? The pteridophytes are found in cool, damp, shady places, and they flourish very well in sandy soil. Cool, damp spaces and sandy soil. Right? Now, some pteridophytes require water for fertilization. So therefore, the pteridophytes are found there also, and there are only very few. Examples are Azolla, Salvinia, Marsilia. Okay, finish habitat. First part habitat got over. Next is, how does the plant body look like? Like just now I showed you. How does the plant body look like? Right? The plant body looks like what? The main plant body is a sporophyte. 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 Sporophyte and gametophyte are the two main types of plant body and the dominant phase in the life cycle of these plants. And as per the evolution, on the last page of the lesson of this chapter only, they have shown you the three types of life cycle, which I will also just show you at the end. So the main plant body is the sporophyte, and you have to study your NCERT book in detail, right? Then only your other notes and all, and which I am speaking in a very simple manner. Then comes, and this sporophyte is differentiated into, as I again show you the picture, root, stem, leaf, in which it is differentiated into, right? So you have to keep this in your mind, this figure of the pteridophyte. And they are the first plants to possess well differentiated vascular tissues. Okay, and the leaves are small, and when the leaves are small, they are called as microphytes. And if the leaves are large, they are called as macrophytes. If they are small, it is found in the species Selaginella, right? And if it is big, it is found in the species Diopteris or common fern, which we keep at home. So small sporophylls and big sporophylls, micro and macro. Then comes the size varies from one pteridophyte to the other pteridophyte. That is the plant body. Next comes, I have written here vascular tissue, because this is the first plant type vascular tissue which has been evolving, that is the xylem and the phloem for conduction of water. So the plants evolved as the first terrestrial plants to possess xylem and phloem throughout their body. This xylem consists of tracheids and the phloem, which is made up of sieve cells and one more type of cells called as the albuminous cells. This is the composition. So this part got over, habitat got over, plant body got over, vascular part got over. Now we come to sporophylls. Quick recap. Now the sporophylls, these sporophylls which we see, they from on where do they come? Where are they born? The sporophytes, this means the plant body. The sporophytes bear the sporangia, and these sporangias are suspended in a leaf-like appendage called prothallus. Prothallus is a very important word given here. It is there. What is this prothallus? The sporangia that they are embedded in leaf-like appendages called sporophylls. Okay, and these sporophylls are of two types, micro and macro. And now these sporophylls are also arranged in specific cones or strobili. And when they are arranged in specific cones or strobili, which example you will give? Selaginella and Euchystum. Okay. Now what about the spores? These strobili produce the spores. And how are they? The sporangia produce the spores by meiosis, and the spores germinate to give rise to a free-living photosynthetic thalloid gametophyte. And this free-living photosynthetic thalloid gametophyte, leaf-like thalloid gametophyte, is called as prothallus. If they ask you for 1 marks in MCQ, what is prothallus, and tick the correct part. It is free-living, it is photosynthetic, and it is a thalloid gametophyte. In majority of the pteridophytes, all the spores are of similar kind, and the plants are called as homosporous. The spores are similar. That is why homosporous. So don't get confused. Spores, sporophylls, cone, strobili are interconnected. And prothallus is the thalloid gametophyte part of the pteridophyte, which comes in the life cycle. Okay, now but some pteridophytes like Selaginella and Salvinia can have two kinds of spores, and then they are known as heterosporous. Okay, that's over. Now what about the gametophyte part of the body? That is the other part of the body. Sporophyte I told you. What about the gametophyte part of the body? The thalloid gametophyte or photosynthetic prothallus requires cool place, a damp place, and a shady place to grow. So it has to grow in that condition. Now the megaspores, which are the female spores, and the microspores, they both germinate and they give rise to a female and male gametophyte separately. Micro will give rise to male and macro will give rise to female. Okay. The female gametophyte in these plants get retained on the parent sporophyte for variable time. Okay. In most of the forms, the prothallus is green, as I said, and is autotrophic. So if they give you a short note on prothallus, you have 2-3 points to write there. Now, what about the sex organs in a pteridophyte? The sex organs are called by a specific name, archegonium and antheridium. Antheridium is the male one, archegonium is the female one. Now, and they both take part in sexual mode of reproduction. The asexual mode of reproduction is through gemme, as I told you in my first video, GEMMAE, which are small buds coming on the thalloid sporophyte. That is the asexual. But for sexual, it is the specific sex organ, antheridium and archegonium. Okay. Now, what happens here during fertilization of gametes? What is happening? Water is required here, and that antherozoids or the male gametes are transferred to the female one, that is the archegonium. The female one, what happens? The male and the female gamete, they fuse in the archegonium, resulting in fertilization and resulting in zygote formation. Now, this zygote develops into a multicellular, well-differentiated gametophyte. Remember, fusion, fertilization, zygote. From the zygote, It is developing into a gametophyte. Now this I take back my words. I'm sorry. It's not gametophyte. It is a sporophyte, because sporophyte is a very important part in the life cycle of a pteridophyte. So the gametes fuse to form zygote. I repeat, the zygote turns into a well-developed multicellular sporophyte, and the number of nuclei here is diploid. It is denoted by 2n, diploid. Okay, and this is the dominant part of the pteridophyte. If they ask you what is the sporophyte, where it is found, how it is found, and when it is found. 4 questions from this description. Okay. Now fertilization produces a zygote, and this zygote develops to grow into an embryo. And the development of the zygote into a young embryo takes place inside the female gametophyte. Very important. And this event is a precursor of the seed habit, that how the seeded plants came, which you will see the naked seeds, gymnosperm, covered seeds, angiosperm. So pteridophyte was the starting line to give rise to seeded plants. Okay, and this is considered as an important step of evolution. And examples are Dryopteris, Selaginella, Ediantum, Equistum, and Salvinia. These are the classic pteridophytes. Over. So I covered these points of introduction. Now we come to the, if you want to compare the bryophyte and the pteridophyte, a quick recap. Bryophyte, the main plant body is a gametophyte. Here, the main plant body is a sporophyte. Then bryophyte is non-vascular. What about pteridophyte? They are vascular. What about sporophyte? What is the sporophytic part in bryophyta? Sporophyte is parasitic over the gametophyte. What about pteridophyte? Sporophyte is independent of the gametophyte. Then the plant body in bryophyta is a phoilose or thallus-like, and whereas in a pteridophyte it is differentiated into root, stem, and leaves. Then the roots are absent in bryophyte, rhizoids are found. Remember that. And here roots are found in pteridophytes. Then the sex organs are stalked in case of bryophyte. Here the sex organs are sessile, inconspicuous, sessile. The stalks are not there. These are the basic differences. Now we come to the last part, is what is their economic importance of the pteridophytes. Now these pteridophytes are used for medicinal purposes. Okay, and they are good source for food for animals. So the examples are Marsilia, one of the best example. It is edible. Now then we say these ferns, they protect the soil from erosion. So they help in plantation. I mean to keep the place fertile and green. Okay, now Equistum has been seen to grow on rough surfaces, and so they are used in scrubbing and polishing of metals. Very important. Equistum. Azolla, another important fern, shows symbiotic association and helps in nitrogen fixation with the bacteria Anabina. So the cyanobacteria Anabina. So if they ask you, name the pteridophyte associated with nitrogen fixation, Azolla. Please remember Azolla. Then they are also used as biofertilizers. These are the important uses. And one more use is some of the ferns are used as ornamental plants for their graceful plant type. Okay, so this is a quick 15 minutes. I told you about pteridophytes, the features of pteridophytes, the comparison of pteridophytes with the bryophyte. Now, based on these same criteria, we come to gymnosperm. Their habitat, their plant body, and these particular parts. So before we go to gymnosperm, you kindly turn your book and open the page 39, where you see the figures of gymnosperm. If they are given on this page, focus on these figures given: the cycus, the pinus, and the cones. Okay. Now gymnosperms. Okay. Now the gymnosperms comes from the two words gymnos and sperma. So gymnos means naked and sperma means seeds. So the plants with naked seeds, in which the ovules are not enclosed by the ovary wall and they remain exposed both before and after fertilization. Very important feature of gymnosperm. And they are a small group of plants. They only have 900 species around them. Okay. Unlike bryophyta and pteridophyta, the gymnosperms with the male and female gametophyte do not have independent existence. They do not live independently. They remain within the sporangia, retained on the sporophyte. Like in pteridophyte, the sporophyte was independent, it was not dependent. Here, neither the sporophyte nor the gametophyte are independent. They are retained inside the sporangia, retained on the sporophyte. Okay. Now, what about the habitat? Where is it seen? Now, the plant bodies are found in the colder parts of India, of the world, like the northern hemisphere, and they are extensively, they form the forest. Okay, a number of gymnosperms are, for example, cycas, ginkgo, are the common ones which you see around yourself. Then what about their external morphology, how they look like? The gymnosperms include medium-sized trees, and they can be in the form of trees or they can be in the form of shrubs. Now, the giant redwood tree, the sequoia tree, is also a gymnosperm, and it is one of the world's tallest tree, up to 100 meters. It comes under gymnosperm. Okay. Now, the smallest gymnosperm is Zamia. That is only 25 centimeters. So the tallest one is also in this group, and the smallest one is also in this group. Now we come to the entire plant body of the gymnosperm, as you saw in the figure. Now the plant body is a sporophyte. It is very well differentiated into root, stem and leaf. Okay. Then it has two types of roots here. It has mycorrhizal roots and it has coralloid roots. The mycorrhizal roots means fungal is associated with them. Fungi is associated with them. And what about the coralloid roots? The coralloid roots help in nitrogen fixation and with some of the nitrogen fixing bacteria like Anabina. Two types of root found here. Okay. Then comes the leaves. How is the leaf type morphology? It can be simple or compound, because in my next video we will read about the morphology of an entire plant, where you will see the types of leaf and their inflorescence, their arrangement, the phyllotaxy, etc. So that is all. Either they are simple or they are branched. So this was about gymnosperm. Now coming to its reproduction. The gymnosperms produce two kinds of spores and they are heterosporous. Now, what about heterosporous means? They produce two types of spores, means microspores and the megaspores. Okay, and which help in reproduction. The following, what are the events during reproduction? Two kinds of spores are produced. These spores are produced within the sporangia and that are borne on the sporophylls and which are arranged along the axis in a spiral way, and this arrangement on an axis gives rise to a particular shape. So you must have seen the cones of cycas or pines when you go to a hilly station. They fall on the road and you pick it up when you go for a trip. So they are produced in different types, microsporangia or for the male one, and if they are produced on the female one, it will be macrosporangia for megasporophyll. Three things are there here. Don't get confused. The sporophylls are the leaf-like appendages. The sporophylls are produced on the sporangia. The sporangia produces the spores. The spores are of two types, micro and macro. Like this is the flow chart here. Okay. So the arrangement is also different. Male strobili, which forms the cone-like structure, is different from the female strobili. Okay. That is also here. And the plant may be monoecious, that is either male or female, as in the case of pinus tree, and or sometimes it can be dioecious, where both the sex organs are found, as in the case of cycas. A very, very important example for monoecious gymnosperm, pinus, and dioecious gymnosperm, cycas. Okay, now that is all. And the microspores develop into male gametophyte, which is very much reduced here, and it is confined only to a limited number of cells. That is, the microsporophylls come to from where? From the male gamete. Male gamete matlab the pollen grains. So the microspores develop into the male gametophyte, and which is highly reduced. The male gametophyte is the reduced part, which are coming from the pollen grains. The development of the pollen grains occurs within the microsporangia, right? Okay. Now, if they ask you suddenly after 10th, these terms are coming in your dictionary. What is the difference between microsporophyll and megasporophyll? What will you write? Microsporophyll, it bears microsporangia. Megasporophyll, it bears megasporangia. Mega means big. Now, microsporophyll, it contains numerous small microspores, which are future pollen grains. And megasporophyll, it contains only one megaspore, that is the future female cone or strobili. Microspores get released, they go for fertilization. But megaspores are retained, they are at one place within the megasporangium. So the difference between microsporophyll and megasporophyll, here comes. And then what happens, when the microspores are released, they reach the megasporangium. fertilization takes place, like there in the previous one, pteridophyte I told you. And air current is required for the transport of male gamete, and the male gametes get carried to archegonia, same like the pteridophyte, the female sex organ, and the gamete in the ovule by means of a tube called pollen tube is formed, and they discharge their pollen grains on the mouth of the archegonia, and this is known as syphinogamy. Syphinogamy, a new term in your dictionary. Okay, following fertilization, what happens? The zygote develops into an embryo and the ovules develop into the seed. These are the post fertilization changes. Zygote into embryo and ovules into seed. The seeds contain the food laden tissue. The name of the tissue is endosperm. Very important. What is endosperm? The food laden tissue. Okay, and endosperm provides nourishment for the growth of the seedling from time to time. Okay, the examples of gymnosperms are cycas, pinus, zinco, zenitum, etc. This was about the gymnosperm I told you. Now the gymnosperms are again classified based on what? Further, they are classified into 4 main classes. I'm just telling you that, not important, but you should know. Psychopsida, that is the cycads. Coniferopsida, that is the conifers. The Geneptocida, the genitum, and the Ginkgopsida, the ginkgo. And sometimes they ask you, give the difference between the male gametophyte of the pteridophyta and the male gametophyte of gymnosperm. They do ask. So the first difference here is, in pteridophyta, if you recollect, a distinct male gametophyte is not present. It is not present. And in case of gymnosperm, a distinct male gametophyte is present. Then, in pteridophyta, it contains an antheridium, and the antheridium is not found in case of gymnosperms. Male gametes are flagellate; they move. The male gametes can be flagellate or non-flagellate in case of gymnosperm. The male gametes reach the female gamete by swimming, that is, water is required for fertilization in case of pteridophyte. Male gametes reach the female gamete through pollen tube, syphinogamy. Okay, the difference. And what is the economic importance of gymnosperm? The economic importance are gymnosperm provide soft wood for construction of plywood and paper industry, and also some branches of gymnosperm are used as a fuel. Then the resin, a semi-liquid fluid produced by the conifers, is very important. And also the resin is distilled to obtain the turpentine and another thing called this resin only. Turpentine is obtained from resin. Turpentine is used for thinning the plants, varnishing, paints, etc. For thinning, we use this turpentine when the paint is very thick. Like if those who do painting, turpentine oil is added. Turpentine liquid type is added there. And the resin is used for sealing of vessels and preparation of writing paper, etc. Then another very important antibiotic is obtained from gymnosperm, ephedrine, 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 and it is used for respiratory problems and asthma. This is one. Okay, now as I told you, when you open your textbook, your last page of the lesson is angiosperm. If I show you this cycle, this page number 40 and page number 41. Page number 40 and page number 41. Okay. What it is about? What is this angiosperm about? If I tell you overall the basic differences between gymnosperm and angiosperm. Now listen. Now this gymnosperms, the vessels or tracheids are absent in the xylem. First you will write. What about the angiosperm? Tracheids are present in the xylem. Then the phloem contains sieve cells. Where? In gymnosperm. The phloem tissue contains sieve tubes and companion cells in case of angiosperm. Then gymnosperm, the sporophylls get segregated to form the cones or strobili. The sporophylls, in case of angiosperms, get aggregated to form the flowers. The flowers are the modified shoot. A flower is a modified shoot, if you can define. Or the sporophylls get converted to a flower. Then the sepals and petals are absent in gymnosperm. The sepals and petals are present in an angiosperm. Then cones are generally unisexual in case of gymnosperm, and the flowers are generally bisexual. Then microsporophylls are produced in gymnosperm, which are broad and leaf-like. Microsporophylls have a stalk and a terminal, and they terminate into anthers in case of angiosperm. Then the ovules get exposed in case of gymnosperm. That is why naked seeds. And the ovules are enclosed in an ovary. Therefore, they are covered. They are covered. Okay, the covered seeds, angiosperm, and gymnosperm, the naked seed. And then the pollen enters through the micropyle end. There are two ends in an ovary, and a micropylar end and antipodal end. So the pollen enters the micropyle, directly it enters, and the pollen, what happens in case of angiosperm, that is known as sphenogamy in case of gymnosperm, because the pollen is entering through the micropyle end of the ovary, and pollen grain lands on the stigma of the flower, then it falls the pollen tube, which passes and enters through the style to the ovary in case of angiosperm. Okay, now one very important difference: single fertilization in case of gymnosperm, but double fertilization in case of angiosperm. How this double fertilization takes place? You all should read page number 41 of your NCERT book, where the pollen grains, which produces two male gametes, it fuses with the ovary. In the ovary, which is having 8 cells there. 8 cells, how it has? The egg apparatus. The egg apparatus had 8 cells. If I read out the paragraph on page number 40, where you can see the anthers produce pollen grains. The female sex organ in a flower is the pistil, also called the carpel. The pistil consists of the ovary enclosing one to many ovules. Within the ovules are present the reduced female gametophyte called the embryo sac. Now the embryo sac has 3-celled apparatus, 1 egg cell and 2 synergids, 3 antipodal cells and 2 polar nuclei. You add all of them, they become 8. The polar nuclei eventually fuses to produce a diploid secondary nucleus. Pollen grains, after dispersal from the anthers, are carried by the wings and other agencies to the stigma of the plant, and this is called as pollination, first step. Then the pollen grains germinate on the stigma and result in pollen tubes. The pollen tubes enter the embryo sac, where the 2 male gametes also come. One of the male gamete fuses with the egg cell to form zygote, and this process is known as syngamy. They will ask you. The other male gamete fuses with the diploid secondary nucleus to produce a triploid and endosperm, and because of the involvement of 2 fusion, we call it as double fertilization, a unique event in angiosperm. The zygote develops into an embryo with 2 cotyledons, and the synergids and the antipodal cells degenerate. These are the post-fertilization changes after fertilization. And so the life cycle of an angiosperm is shown here. Okay, sporophyte and the sporophyte and the gametophyte. Yes, this is this. So this part I told you, and hopefully you will see this. And in the last part of your lesson, come to page number 42, where they have shown you the 3 types of life cycle in any plant: haplobiontic, diplobiontic, haplodiplobiontic. This is also asked in the exam. What is this about? What is this about? What is haplobiontic? What is haplobiontic? On page number 42 it is given. Sporophyte generation is represented only by 1-celled zygote. Haplobiontic is the dominant phase in it. The spores produce gametophyte. The gametophyte, by gametogenesis, produces the zygote. Okay? And examples are the algae, the volvox, the spirogyra, all come under this haplobiontic life cycle. What about the diplobiontic life cycle, the second one in the figure? Here the gametophyte phase is represented by a single cell or a few cell haploid gametophyte. This kind of life cycle is termed as diplobiontic, and the gymnosperm and angiosperm follow this pattern. Okay? And what about the haplodiploidy, both 50-50? That comes under the bryophyte and pteridophyte, exhibit an intermediate condition, the haplodiplobiontic. Both phases are multicellular, however they differ in the dominant phases. Okay, so this is the whole lesson about. So we studied in part 2 today. We studied about the pteridophyte, we studied about the gymnosperm with the common headings under this, then the comparison of the pteridophyte with the bryophyte, then the small terms like microsporophylls, megasporophylls, male, female gametophyte, male gametophyte, then in the end angiosperm, the differences between the gymnosperm and the angiosperm, and the 3 types of life cycle: haplontic, diplontic, haplodiplontic. So go through the exercises, questions. Biology is a question to be written and studied. Just reading will not do. Go through all the types of the questions which is given and make small notes on it and study it, and hopefully I was clear with this part of the video. Meet you with the next lesson, morphology of a flowering plant. And thank you. Do subscribe and like the channel The Science Geek. Thank you, students.